that she was just as comfortable with somebody in the lunchroom talking about what's going on with their grandkids at home as she was presenting in the boardroom.
Hey, it's John Bernatovicz. Welcome to the HR Like a Boss video series. If it resonates with you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend. In the description, you will find social media links to the complete podcast interview. You can also take the HR Like a Boss survey at willery.com/HRLAB. I've embarked on a journey to get to know amazingly awesome HR and business professionals, which has created the foundation for my book on what it takes to do HR like a boss. And on today's episode, we have a very special guest, Chris Schmitt. Chris is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at the National Association of Manufacturers. Chris, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
So I know the reason why we asked you to be on the show may be a surprise to many that are listening into the podcast, because you're the first guest that we'll have that has been positively impacted by someone doing HR like a boss, Miss Lauren Rudman. So we were able to connect through her. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your relationship with Lauren and how you met her, as well as some of the stuff you're doing at your current job.
Absolutely. So I was privileged to work with Lauren for a little over 5 years at a company called Aeroco, headquartered here in Northeast Ohio, that became Pentair. So I got to work with her as an HR lead at a $600 million manufacturer that was really growing around the world, and seeing Lauren as really a plant HR person at the start of our careers there. And then really to see her develop into a global HR resource for Pentair, which is an $8 billion company, during the last few years that we were together at Pentair. So we've both moved on since then, but she really became a good friend and a confidant during our time at those two organizations, really the same organization, because we never left our offices we were in before. But it was really great to get to know her and get to see her impact, not only on me, but on the organization as a whole.
So how do you think Lauren viewed her role and responsibility when working together, and in a way that was maybe different than you had viewed from other HR professionals?
Sure. I do think that sometimes HR gets the bad rap of they're almost it's the Toby in the office, right? It's somebody who is above and outside the organization as a whole. And Lauren is just the opposite of that. She, as my grandparents would say, never met a stranger. And I mean that in the most sincere and appreciative way possible, in the fact that me being a professional in the organization, she would interact with me the same way she would interact with somebody who was a temp, who was working for an hourly wage on the line. She got to know people. She got to know their kids. She got to know the stories of their community. She got to know what it was that made them tick beyond getting a paycheck. And so that ability to lower is the wrong word, but that ability to meet everyone on their level, that she was never afraid to get down where someone was, to rise up to the executive level when she needed to interact with somebody. That ability to be the phrase I like is cultural chameleon, that she was just as comfortable with somebody in the lunchroom talking about what's going on with their grandkids at home as she was presenting in the boardroom. And that says a lot about her as a person, but also as the attitude that really carries the day for people that are doing HR right.
Did you see anything in particular in that ability to build those relationships that how that impacted employees? Was there an experience you remember either personally or with others that Lauren's approach to human resources really touched someone in a positive way?
Sure. It's a different level of trust. And I think that's ultimately what it comes back to. Of course, the paperwork is always going to be important. Getting people hired for and getting them trained up for their first day on the job, that's always going to be important. And so not to downplay that. But when chaos comes along, when crisis comes along, I'll tell you, coming from Aeroco, which $600 million company, I actually woke up in Mexico City the day that they announced that we were selling the organization. And so being 3,000 miles away from home and having no concept of what was going on, my first phone call was to Lauren. And it wasn't her as the HR representative. It was her as somebody that I trusted within the backbone of the organization to say, is everything okay? And her first immediate thought when she picked up the phone, I remember she said something to the extent of, don't worry, it'll all be fine. And that was just such a reassuring pat on the back from 3,000 miles away. So that's how it impacted me. But going through that transition, people that had worked for Erico, which was founded in 1903, was a 115-year-old company when we were purchased. A lot of people had been there for 20 and 30 and 40 years. And she had that same steady hand on the wheel attitude and that same focus with everybody in the organization. And her and people like her really made that transition possible, because you're taking a small company culture and slamming it into a big New York, Wall Street traded organization. Big culture shock, no doubt about it. And that transition was possible, though, because of people like Lauren, who were willing to utilize that trust, to leverage some of those points that they had built up with people over the years, to say, you can trust me, I've got your back on this. And that was just such a great way to experience a very emotional time in everyone's lives and careers, but also feeling like you had a friend who had their eye on the ball.
Okay, so without using the word Lauren, the last question that I get everybody out on my podcast is how would you describe someone that does HR like a boss? And I was kidding, you can use the word Lauren, but I know it'll be one of the main reasons why. But how would you describe that?
I really do think it's somebody who puts the people back in HR, puts the human and human resources. That is so vital to meet people where they are, to understand what their emotional drivers are, to understand what incentivizes them. And very rarely, all the studies that come out, I love reading the studies that say people would like a little more money in their paycheck, people would love recognition, and people would love to be able to interact with an organization that they feel cares about them. I'll tell you, my organization now, the National Association of Manufacturers, culture really does start at the top with our CEO. That when I unfortunately caught the coronavirus very early last spring, and as soon as word got out, I got a personal phone call from the CEO of our organization saying, I want you to make sure you take care of yourself. What can we do? What can we do for your family? And he personally oversaw them sending meals to my family for the week that I was in the hospital. And we have an HR leader and we have an HR substrate within that organization, but he is so key on people is where it starts, that he would take his time out of the day. So I think that's such a great indication. Professionals like Lauren who do that as a daily basis, leaders like Jay who do that as just as a matter of form of who they are. I will say that we are spoiled being here in the Midwest, that we grow up around habitually nice people. And so I think that we have probably more positive interactions around a lot of the HR conflicts that I hear about from other parts of the country or other parts of the world, that we experience them a little different here, because there's a general propensity to be a kind human being to the people around you. But I think carrying some of that Midwest niceness, some of that culture of compassion and caring, but also of demanding hard work. And I think that's something else that a great HR staff that does HR like a boss, they want excellence from people. They expect people to have their best. They're willing to provide you the environment where you can be excellent, and go out of their way to make sure you have what you need. But at the end of the day, work ethic is such a huge part of any culture. And the best HR folks are the ones who are demanding people to really give their all for an organization.
I really appreciate you being on the show. You did a great job on our very first someone impacted by HR like a boss. So you'll set the bar for all the other future guests.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. And thanks for the work you and Lauren are doing on this book. I'm excited to take a look.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you for those for checking out today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. And until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.